Hey there, so today I'm working on my '04 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited, also known as a LJ. It's the longer version of a TJ. Same engine and all the front end and everything's the same as a TJ, so this works on both. Everything from I think 96 to '06, and this is a 4-liter straight 6. Has a real common problem of, especially down in Florida in the heat, when you let it run, drive down the road, shut it off somewhere, run into the store, come back out, and then it's not wanting to crank because the fuel is vaporized in the fuel rail, which is right here. This particular engine style, they installed the exhaust on the bottom of this side of the engine, and then the air intake, and then the fuel rail. Everything's stacked on top of each other, and all the heat from the exhaust just comes right up and vaporizes the fuel in the rail when it sits like that for a minute. Makes it run real rough. You'll usually get a engine misfire code, and today we're going to fix that by installing this heat shield. This is one of like $25 deals off of Amazon. You end up with a little heat shield guard here. It sits right below the fuel rail on top of the air intake. Shield some of that heat coming up in between the holes where the exhaust can come up and through. We also have a wrap that goes around the fuel rail itself, and then we also have wraps for each of the individual 6 injectors, and they just wrap around, Velcro together. I think it was even nice enough to come with new O-rings for the injectors. That's a great thing to have because the ones that are on there I know are old. Sometimes I have an issue where it's got to spin over a little bit when you go to crank it in the morning because the pressure in the fuel rail has released because of these O-rings have started to fail. So we're going to replace those too. Going to start out, get some stuff out of the way so we can get this fuel rail off. We're going to take off the wire loom rail, the fuel rail, pull the injectors, and disconnect our fuel, which comes in right here from the gas tank. And we're going to remove this air intake right now. That's going to be, I believe it's an 8mm. It is. Just take it loose and we'll get it out of the way. Be sure not to drop the tool. This one hadn't been off, I don't think, in a long time, so it's gonna probably take a screwdriver or something to break the rubber loose from the metal. Just don't want to rip it. Over on this side, it's plastic to plastic, so it may just pop off. Yeah. Pops off there. We're gonna pull this little rubber hose off, move it out of the way, and then I'm gonna take from here and just try to twist it a little bit and see if I can get that seal to break, which it did. Good deal. And that just comes off out of the way. Set it down here in my cart. Now we got a little extra room to work. So from here I'm going to switch out to a deep well 10mm, stick it on a little short extension, and let's see, we will tell you what, first I'm going to disconnect that fuel. That is a special tool that it takes to remove that, but you can get this little fuel line disconnect tool at pretty much any parts store. Has 4 different sizes on it. This is the size that we're going to be using, the smallest one on the tool, but it has a big size, little size, and then you can flip it around this way and you have 2 different sizes there as well. But this has a little safety. You just pop that off with a screwdriver, 5-in-1, get that out of the way, switch to your disconnect tool, and it goes in from the front side here, and what you're trying to do is get it snug around the pipe preferably with both of the pieces inside. There we go. Just open it up just a little bit, close it around the hose, and then you just push towards the fuel line. You want to hold on to that fuel line a little bit, push, and then it will disconnect. What you want to do is let this thing sit overnight, let the fuel pressure come off, because if you try to do this when the engine's hot, you're going to get fuel all over the engine. It's going to hit the exhaust, possibly explode. You don't want that. Let the engine be cool and let it sit so you get that pressure off of this fuel line. It doesn't want to come back far enough because of the air conditioner lines. I'm just going to leave it like that. We'll get all that sorted out when we disconnect the bolts that hold the fuel rail. I'm going to go ahead and get the throttle cable and the cruise control cable out of the way. 10mm, and I think I can just pop off the clips. The easiest way is just to come up and sit up top. Take and pull your throttle back a little bit and just push on the clip. That should pop off. That's on a ball, it just pops off. Then you can take and unbolt the bracket. There's a screw there, and then a screw here. These injectors just roll back and forth. And we take the bolts out. One there, and one here. Then this bracket should just get out of the way. We can work on other things. This bracket just has a little plastic clip that goes over the bolt. Usually can just pop it out by hand or get a tool under it and get a little pressure. That back one can be aggravating sometimes. All three of those are popped off. That just carries all the fuel injector wires, all that kind of thing. I think at this point I'll probably pull the fuel rail using that 10mm. And if we need to, we can remove the wiring, but I don't think we will. Fuel rail has 4 bolts that hold it together. I'm just going to loosen up all 4 of them. Get a little longer extension on this one to clear the air conditioning lines. The 2 on the ends have special post bolts. They look like that. You just want to make sure you get your washer side back in towards the engine when you go to put them back on. Go ahead and stick these couple bolts here on the table so we don't lose them. You probably don't have to technically remove this, but it's way easier to get the wrap on it if you do. middle bolts, now just the end one. Get that off of there. I'm gonna get back up in that, sitting on the radiator bracket position to pull the rail up. Just got to give it a little wiggle back and forth. You're pulling those injectors out of their sockets. All of those out of there. Now we should be able to get the fuel line off the rest of the way, and the whole assembly will pull back some. I still have all the wire into the injectors attached. At this point we could remove those if need be. I'm going to see if I can go ahead and get all these taken loose, and I'll just pull the fuel rail out, take a look at the injectors, and might end up needing to clean them too while we have it out. I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, so it took me a minute to remember how to get these clips off here, but I'm using just a set of needle nose and a small flathead screwdriver. I grabbed the black part of the connector, and right on the bottom of this there's a little red tab that you push up and then push with the screwdriver while holding the space with the pliers, and it might take a little bit, but it pops that little red piece up. Then you can push on the black piece with your thumb or finger, wiggle it around a little bit, and it'll come off of that injector. There we go. Don't pull on the wires, that's real bad for them, and you could rip a wire out, have problems with the injector not firing. So we got 3 of them so far out of the way, and the farther you get on there, the easier it is to get to. Just gonna reposition a little bit. Grab the black part, pull up on that red tab, and push. Okay, we're on the last one now. I skipped ahead a little bit because they were being aggravating, and this one hopefully will not be. Get all the wires out of the way. Just gotta get that tab picked up right there and push. There we go. Popped right up on that one. Yeah. Push there and wiggle, and the whole fuel rail comes out. Let's sit that down for a second. Let me get down. We can take a look, see what the condition of the injectors are. Going to be a little bit of fuel in it. We'll drain that out. Those don't look to be in too bad a condition. I'm probably going to get some carb cleaner, spray that all down, get it all clean, and then we'll work on getting the wraps installed. I have acquired some carburetor cleaner. Going to take and spray off all these injectors a little bit. Just getting all the oil and everything off of them. this one down. It's a little on the dirty side. We'll do a better cleanup once we get everything apart. Very good idea to go ahead and do this since you gotta replace these O-rings anyway. Just go ahead and get all the injectors out. I don't know if it matters if they go back in the same spot, but I'm going to put them back in the same spot. So we'll just line those up in order. And I'm sure there's a special tool for it to get these clips off. I'm just gonna pop the end of it up and over the metal. Give a little wiggle there and the clip comes right off. It slides into a channel that's on the injector. There's an O-ring on this end as well. The kit comes with 12 O-rings, so you replace both sides. That's what it looks like there. The O-ring's been a little compressed. There's the other O-ring, one right there, and the little slot for the clip. We'll get all these taken out and get them all cleaned up, get new O-rings on them, get them lubricated, put back together, and we'll get all the heat shields on. Number 4. Number 5 off of there. And number 6. Go. Fuel rail looks to be in good shape. Not really going to mess with that too much. Set it off to the side. There's a lot of fuel in that thing. When you're taking this off, make sure you don't have any open flames or sparks, or don't smoke a cigarette around it. Just going to pop these O-rings off. Got a little hook tool. This thing is one of the best tools in the toolkit. I use it on pretty much every job. Pop those off of there. Set all them to the side. We'll do a cleanup on these injectors once we get all the O-rings off and get the new ones on. To get this done quick because running out of shade here under the shade tree. Might have to roll this thing back a little bit down the hill and get back in the shade. Now I got injector number 1. Those of you that don't do mechanic work all the time, you might want to wear gloves. This stuff burns a little bit if you're not used to it. Especially if you have a little cut on your hand or something. Hopefully that'll get these injectors running a little better. Have a little bit of a rough idle here and there, but nothing too bad. if you see the body of the injector, if it's cracked, discolored, you know, they've overheated. That's also a real common problem. I have a 2000 Wrangler over there that those are all cracked up on. Eventually I'm gonna have to replace those injectors, but for now they work. Oh yeah, found a little cut. Get that off there before it burns too much. Wash my hands up and get this off of here. Yeah, carburetor cleaner will find any little cut and go to burning. Okay, we're gonna put the O-rings on now. They just pop on. They're all the same size. Just want to make sure you rotate them a little bit once you get them on there. Make sure they haven't rolled into a funny position, something like that. Making sure keep all the injectors in order. Like I said, I don't remember if the computer keeps track of that and you know what the state of each one is and how much fuel to put to each one. I'm sure it does of some sort, so that's just to keep them in order. The injector end that goes into the engine is a little bit tighter than the rest, so that's why I'm spinning those, because I'm sort of rolling the ring over, and if it rolls over into a opposite position, then it's always going to want to try to return to its home position, and it can't. Perfect example right here. I have a cracked injector. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. There's a crack right there. Might think about running up to the store, grabbing a new one of those. Just heat and time make it do that, and can cause those injectors to fail. Actually have a couple of them that have that same crack, so yeah, looks like 4 is good. I have small cracks on all the rest of them. They'll probably be alright. I'm gonna call up the parts store, get a price on replacing those, and we'll go from there in a minute.
What's the year and model?
So that's gonna be a 04 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited, and it's got the 4-liter straight 6.
How many do you need?
6.
Alright. And you said it's unlimited?
Yes.
Alright. Okay, so it actually says that I do not have any in my store for the Wrangler, but there are in town. They're kind of all scattered all over the place, so I could have them all sent to this store. They would be here around 5 o'clock tomorrow.
Alright. What's the price on them?
$49.49.
That's each?
Oh, it also has a core charge, so we want the old ones back. It's $9 for the cores.
I gotcha. Well, sounds good. But we got, I might just go around and pick them up. Where do you have them?
Okay, so one's in South Monroe, Northwest Passage has one. Actually, it looks like the other ones are kind of farther out of town, because it's like Bainbridge, Valdosta,
I gotcha.
Georgia, and Thomasville.
10-4. Let me figure out what I want to do then, and I'll give you a ring back.
Alright.
Alright, thanks.
Yep, have a good day.
You too. Bye. So the cracks aren't too bad, plus nobody in town has the parts today. I'm going to put it back together like it is, and if we do have issues in the future, then we can just replace them then after I can get the parts in. And do just put a little bit of lubricant on all these O-rings so they go in nice and easy. Get both sides of them together. Let's see, that goes on the front. This was my number 1. Gonna stick them right on back in. Let's see, it goes like that, so I want the connector to be on top. And we'll take one of these clips and clip it back together. Easier said than done apparently, but we'll get it. There we go, just had to widen it out a little bit with the screwdriver. Go on to number 2. Plug that guy on in. Make sure that the O-ring doesn't roll off of the mounting location when you're doing that. Push on that. Stick my screwdriver in right there just to pick up on it a little bit. And then it pops on in. Make sure it clicks in. There's a little tab that it rides in. Make sure your tab is connected right there. That's actually the metal ring more than a tab. Sort of start it at an angle and then twist a little bit to get it to go in easier. Get my clip started. And screwdriver. On to the next. Go ahead and get the rest of these, I think. Alright, back together. Back up top now. Gonna go ahead, mount this. It's got 3 little diamonds here that you pop out. They go right over the bolt holes underneath the wire loom here and all the injector connectors. And I want to make sure that this hole is towards the front. There's a bolt right up here that you need to still have access to, and that provides for it. Now it looks like there's already a heat shield here, either a factory or somebody's already done that part of it. Either way, we're going to leave it in place. A little extra never hurt. Trying to seal up these gaps in between so the heat from the exhaust will go out and around instead of coming up right through this fuel rail. Now, seeing as how I got the cheap Amazon $20 one from China, it looking like it won't go over the 3rd post. It doesn't really matter. It'll get held down by the wire loom and the fuel rail and everything, so no big deal as long as it's covering up and doing its job. It's got 2 mounting holes, no problem. I think at this point we'll go ahead and reinstall the fuel rail, and before doing that we'll get it wrapped and ready to go back in. Now we're back again to the fuel rail a few minutes later here. Just sort of regretting previous decisions because I realized you can't put the heat shield on with the injectors installed. Not too bad, we'll just pop them right back off again and get it wrapped up. But that's just real mechanicking. Sometimes you put step 2 back together before you finish step 1. Okay, back to a fuel rail here that we can just wrap up. Looks like they've drilled all the holes out in the wrong direction, so we'll have to put this together inside out. I don't know if that's going to help too much because that's your heat shield material. I might just need to cut some different holes in it. Looks like it's the case. They just put this slit right here on the wrong side of these holes. So maybe we can put it on without needing to do that. Let's find out. Now, looks like we're gonna have to do a little modification to this. It happens sometimes. Let me figure out a plan, I'll be back with you. The solution's gonna be, I just spun it around, ended up poking a new hole right here for this pipe, the fuel input. There's also this piece that did not get accounted for. I marked that with my screwdriver right there and then just gonna poke a hole through. You can actually just widen it out a little bit with the screwdriver, and happen to have just a wrench right here that I'll poke through the hole, make it a little bigger, twist it around. We got to make it big enough to fit that pressure pop off. There we go. Widen out a little bit of a hole there. And then to figure out how to get all the pieces on at the right time, in the right order for everything to fit. I'll start with the tallest fixture. It's usually the easiest way. And then we'll pull that around and get that installed. That should be the hardest one. Go ahead and get that one on there. Pop the next piece through. Next piece through. Give it a little oomph and it'll pop right on. Now we're back to the brackets again. I need to go ahead and it is the longest feature. So we'll go ahead and pop that in place first, then get the shorter one on. Usually always the easiest that way. Put the long one through the hole, then the short ones. Might just need a little assistance right here of getting it through the hole. That on, and the last one. There we go. Everything through. We're gonna wrap that down tight and Velcro. everything's sealed up nice and neat, and then we can reinstall those injectors and get this thing put back together. Nice heat shield for the fuel rail. That'll help out a lot in this Florida weather. Made sure to put everything back in the proper lineup so we can get those back in. That mounts like that. I need that to be up. Yes. So I will install the clips from the back side one more time. You've seen this part before. I'll be back in a minute. Looking at everything, these don't actually wrap tight around the shaft of the injector. They can go all the way around your wiring and everything and Velcro together. So it's going to be easier once you get this back installed, and then plug in the wires, then wrap them. So we're going to do that. I'll go ahead and install the fuel rail as it is. Add those on after we get everything put back together in the Jeep. Actually add a little bit of extra lubricant here before I go to put it in. Water-based. That way you're not going to degrade these O-rings. But I found that is one of the best ways for installation of any kind of O-ring like this. Just have a little water-based lubricant. Makes everything go in way easier. Okay. Back in this, get it slipped under the wiring, get everything out of the way. Before I put it in, I'm gonna make sure that that fuel line goes back on so it doesn't get in a weird position. I'm gonna line everything back up. Looks like all is good there, good there. Everything lined up, and then you just give it a little push. Pop everything right back in the hole. I'll go ahead and get the bolts back in it. Now I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and clip the wires back in while I'm here. Also get this rail that keeps wanting to move to the wrong position back in place. It is a little more difficult to get the wraps on once it's in location. But I think definitely worth it to get it wrapped around the wiring and everything, so everything is protected. Just wrap all the way around and connect that Velcro. And there's one. These injectors, they'll snap into place, and then you push down that little red clip that we disconnected. That locks everything back in. I'll just go ahead and do these one by one as we go along. I'm trying to do is get the Velcro part towards the hood, facing up as much as I can, because what that's going to do is allow the most part of the heat shield to be facing down, deflecting more heat. There we go. There's number 3. Number 4, real easy to get to. Get that one on. Hard to tell which wire is which there, but you can usually tell just from the way they've curled over time. There we go. And now for the last one. There we go. Now get down, get that bolted back in place, and start putting everything back together. I have my 2 post bolts going the washer side back to the engine. One of these on both ends, normal bolts in the middle. Get those started by hand, and then we'll get the other 2 started. Anytime you can, start the bolt by hand. Just make sure you get a couple threads going, make sure it's not cross-threaded. Nothing holding up that bolt from going in, because if you don't, and just zip it in with an impact gun or something like that, you could cross-thread it in there, cause a big problem. This one's a little difficult to get to. You can start it using just your socket, and then go ahead and swap to your installation tool once you get everything started. Just want to snug it up, get all the rest of them snug, and then do a final tighten once everything's where it needs to be. I get my extension for this one. And then this one. final tighten, and we're good. Now I can get my throttle back together. I'm gonna set that back down in place right there. Get the other bolt started before you get the other one snug, so you can get that alignment just right. Come on, Ratchet, you were supposed to come with me. About that much on your torque spec there. Want it tight and where it won't pop off driving down the road. This snaps in. Both of those are back on. This has a little holder that just pops down onto some posts. That's back in. Those are all back in. That's tight. Now we're going to go back to our 8mm and put the intake back on. If we can find what we did with the 8mm. There it is. We will pop that back down into place. Pop this back on. Pop your PCV valve back on. I'll probably check that in a little bit. Clean all the gunk off of it. This helps the engine run right. While you're already here doing something, might as well take care of some of the things that you can only get to when these parts are off, like cleaning the injectors and inspecting them. That's tight. That's tight. Looks good. Just move everything off of here. Now, should be able to turn it over. It's going to take it a minute to crank back up with all that fuel rail being empty again. Probably just turn the key on and off a few times. Turn it on, let the fuel pump run, turn it off. Wait a few seconds, turn the key on, wait a few seconds till the fuel pump stops running, turn it off. A couple times like that, and it should crank right up. We've let it run for a second. We're gonna make sure that there's no fuel spitting out anywhere. Everything's dry. We don't want a fuel leak. You need to make sure and put your safety back on your fuel line. Other than that, I think we're complete here. I'll crank it up one more time. Just straight crank up, see how it does. Sounds great. I think we'll call this a success. All in all, it took me probably about an hour and a half just messing around with it here in the backyard. It's difficulty rating, I'd say probably about a 5 out of 10 for a beginner just trying to do something yourself without taking it to the mechanic. But with a few simple tools and a little bit of patience and time, you can get it done quick and easy. We've solved an issue here that hopefully I shouldn't have any problems with being able to shut the engine off and then crank it right back up again. And give you an update once we've driven a little bit to find out. Well, I had a few tips I thought I'd share just to end this video out. On your fuel injectors, these little red clips are very aggravating. It does take twisting the injector and getting the tool up under there to pull that little red tab up that you can't really even see, while also wiggling the top part, because they're usually stuck because nobody's ever taken it apart since '04 when it was made. And that's going to happen, but just take your time with it, have patience, and try not to break any of that plastic. It can be difficult getting everything to go back together. If a part breaks off, the thing won't snap in. Might end up having to clip the harness and splice in a new injector connector, something like that. Really don't want to have to mess with that, so just take an extra time. Just don't get in a hurry, and everything goes pretty smooth. As far as the rest of it, it's just basic tools. You have an 8mm and a 10mm. Took this entire project apart, along with a small flathead screwdriver, a set of needle nose pliers, and just a ratchet and a couple extensions. Overall, it's a great fix for these old 4-liter engines, anything in the TJ or the LJ style, 96 to 06. So I think that'll wrap it up today, and everybody be safe, and we'll see you out in the woods.